Welcome back to the High School Bekius program. Today we're doing Yud Aleph and Aleph and Moed Katan. Today's Gemara includes many details about the ideas of Chol Moed. Most of them are summarized by the idea that anything that's necessary for use during the holiday, you're allowed to do not professionally. For example, building nets or ovens are going to be fine as long as they're needed for Chol Moed. You can't do it professionally. Building a fence also is going to be fine. Fixing a roof is fine as long as it's not professional. We're going to have about carpentry and blacksmith's work. There's going to be a gezerah the Gemara is going to discuss exactly on which things that applies. And then we're going to talk about work for Chol Moed, like salting fish, so that could be done if you're going to be able to eat them, but not otherwise. Rav Sharlechia bar Ashi lemigdal ohare b'chol adamada. Rav allowed making nets on Chol Moed, the ones that you use to catch fish. My time I might say head yod who. Those are considered not professional, fine. Aval Islay also making nets that catch birds, it must be much more professional. Those are forbidden. My time I might say umanu. Those are professional activities. Rabbi Yehuda Sharli Imi Tanura Lemigdal Tanure. He allowed this person called Imi Tanura to construct a oven on Chol Moed. L'Rava Bar Isvei, also a person. Lemigdal Mohalta. He allowed them to build a sieve in order to be used on Chol Moed. In any, is that actually true? You're not allowed to construct an oven on Chol Moed. So Rav Yehuda, why did he permit it? It depends if it's a dry season or rainy season. If it's a dry season, like Pesach time, well then it's permitted because it'll dry up after you make the clay oven. Well, then it'll be usable pretty soon, and therefore you can use it on Chol Moed. It's necessary for the Moed, therefore it's permitted. However, in the rainy season, like Sukkot, well, even after you make it, it's going to take a few days to dry, and therefore won't be usable on the holiday, and therefore forbidden. Ozen Makil Gagal or Pesed, Maisauman, you're allowed to make a fence around a roof or a little porch or area that's raised up by stones. You can make a fence around it for protection, but it has to be not professional. Can't be professional. Shavin and Sadkin, if there are cracks in a pavement or in a roof, you could fix them. Magila and Magila be out of regal. You can use what says Magila is a small big wooden tool that would not professionally pave the cement to flatten it. That could be done with your hand or with your foot to press down that wooden thing, and that's fine to fix the pavement and the cement. You can't use a smaller piece of wood. That block is used only by professionals, and you know how to use it properly. Sinor, a hinge or the pivot spot where the hinges are going to go, and when the door closes and opens on that pivot. V'akora, the lintel on top. V'manul, the lock. V'mafteach, the key for the door. All those. Shenishbaru metaknon b'moed. You're allowed to take those on Chol Moed. You can't prepare in advance. You're going to do it on Chol Moed. That's forbidden because then you're preparing work for Chol Moed. Anything that you're salting now that you'll be able to eat on Chol Moed, that's fine. But if you're salting it so much that you're not going to be able to eat it now, you're going to save it for later, well, then you're not allowed to do that work on Chol Moed for afterwards. What does it mean building a fence and stuff like that? That's not professional. What does that look like? It's using palm fronds and just reeds to hold up a wall and a fence. That's pretty temporary and not professional. But it says in the Brisa, you use bricks, rocks, but you don't use cement to put it together. You're allowed to fix the cracks, and you smooth it with this wooden thing, magila, with your hand and your foot. Hashem Magila Marchari. So if it actually is in fact permitted with the Magila, this big wooden plank, well then that's more professional than your hand and foot. So if we say Amar Chari, we said that's permitted, well then Biyad Regel Mabaya isn't necessary. Tell me you can do it with your hand and foot. Rather, there's one much to tell me Shavan Nazadkun Magila in Magila. Biyad Regel. Rather, it means to tell you is you're allowed to do it in Magila. Means similar to the big plank, which is not professional. Basically, you're not allowed to use the big plank or the small plank. But you can do is your yad regel. It's okay to do with your hand and foot because it's definitely not professional. That's ke'in magila. That's permitted with your hand and your foot. Not with the small plank, you're not allowed to use. You're not allowed to use any plank, but you're not allowed to use your hand and regel, which is similar to the magila. And you are allowed to use the yad regel, which is similar to the magila, because that's not professional. You're allowed to do things for the door and the lock that broke on Chol Moed. not professionally. They allowed people to do carpentry on Chol Moed, and they heard a noise of banging on Chol Moed in Yerushalayim. Doesn't it sound like up until that point, not afterwards? But the Mishnah is writing after this Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and still it says it's going to be permitted. So what's going on? Did they make gezerah? Did they not make gezerah? Lo kasha habanafka habanagri. It depends. We're talking about a blacksmith, someone working with metal, that's forbidden, as opposed to carpentry with wood, that's going to be permitted. Maybe the people are going to come and say they should conclude from here that a loud noise that you do with metal, that's forbidden, but a small noise with wood, that's permitted. Well, that's a difficult conclusion to draw. And what's the exact difference? What are people going to understand from that? You can use a small little hammer tool that doesn't make any noise, and a bigger tool that makes some noise. That's going to be forbidden. In fact, our Mishnah are in pre-gezerah. After the gezerah became forbidden. It depends on a different machlokas. Who says for needs that are davar avid, things that are lost, a big important need, they should have a door working, they shouldn't get your stuff stolen? Who said that that's permitted without that you need a shinoi for that? Not Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yehuda thinks you need a shinoi, Rabbi Yossi thinks you don't need a shinoi. And perhaps when we said in our Mishnah is permitted, we were talking about the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. When we're talking about this gezerah, that was the gezerah understood that of Rabbi Yossi, they have to do things in a shinoi way. That was talking according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Who says we put up the lintel on top of the door frame that when there are screws or the nails that fell out, we're going to nail them back in, that we raise it up to put it back? Come on, Rabbi Yossi, that follows Rabbi Yossi's opinion, who doesn't require for davar avid. Things that are totally broken, need fixing, and be a big loss to do it otherwise, to not fix it. Who allows without any shino, without doing anything different? That's Rabbi Yossi. Koshin shu, koshin shu, koshin. You're allowed to salt and pickle fish, and vegetables, even anything that you want to pickle that you're going to be able to eat on Chol Moed. But Dita Labai, by a certain river next to the town Labai, Kavri, there were a bunch of overflow of a lot of fish from the river. Azli Kuliyama, sod. A lot of people want to go hunt and fish and get those fish that came out of the river. Aitu Kavre, they brought the fish. Sharalu Rava the Memlach Minai. They brought a lot of fish, and then he said, that leftover fish, you don't want to spoil it, you're allowed to salt them. Doesn't it say in our mission, you're only allowed to do the things that are necessary for the Moed, not otherwise? You're not allowed to prepare for later. How did you allow them to salt the fish they're not going to use on Chol Moed? They brought it because they wanted to eat that fish, and they had leftovers. If they didn't take it, or they didn't salt it, it would go bad. It's permitted because it's just like a lost capital of a business deal. You're allowed to do work in order so you shouldn't lose money. Rava perhaps permitted in the second version not only to just salt it after the fact and there was leftover, he actually said they should allow to go and hunt and take the fish and then salt it. Doesn't say in the Mishnah only allowed to salt the things they're going to come eat on Chol Moed. He said, no, the salting that they did is not such a serious salting that you can't eat it. You put it away, preserve it for a long time. No, they can even eat it just by rinsing off some of the salt and eating it right then and there. So it's still available and accessible and possible to eat on Chol Moed. That was the practice of Shmuel. Sometimes he would wash something 60 times and be able to eat it just with even the salt without cooking it or whatever, without removing it in the salt. He would just wash off the salt and 60 times and then he'd be able to eat it. So you see, it is possible to eat on Chol Moed with a lot of washing. Rava one time went to the Rish Galu's house and took the salty fish and washed it a bunch of times and ate it 60 times. Rav Shafir, Rav visited Rav Shafir's house. I do look at my kavra, tilta bishula, tilta milcha, tilta tavaya. Once he got a fish served to him that was a third cooked, a third salted, and a third roasted. Amr li Ada Saida Kavara. Once this fisherman Ada told me, the fish are best when they're close to going spoiled. Amr li Ada Saida. This fisherman told me, Saida Kavara. This fisherman said, Tavia ba'achua. How are you supposed to roast fish? Supposed to roast fish together with salt. It's brothers, so to speak. Fish are supposed to be created from the water or naturally in the water together with salt in the ocean. So you should roast it together with its sibling, the salt. You should let it sit in water. And the brine, that avua is its father, so to speak, where it comes from. It comes naturally from the water. And mechla bebrei is you should eat it together with its son. The derivative of it is brine, fish brine that comes out, the juice that comes out of the fish. You should eat it together with the brine. Vishte alei avua, you should drink together with it water. Avua is the father where the fish come from. That's the water. The fisherman Ad said, "Techle v'chalva liton gufa." If someone eats cress or milk, well, those you should do some exercise afterwards. Velolitin puria, you shouldn't go to bed right away. So the fisherman said, "Tachle v'chalva maya v'lo shechra," that a person should make sure to have cress or after a person eats tefle b'chalva, after a person eats cress or drinks milk, they should make sure to have mai v'lo shechra. You should make sure to have some water to wash it down and not beer. Shechra, if he doesn't have water, they should at least have beer, but not chamer, not wine.